If a flag is supposed to be a source of civic pride,
Is this real?
experts in graphic design say
Nothing can quite prepare you for one of the biggest train wrecks.
our flag
It's the flag of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
is a national laughingstock.
It needs to be replaced.
This week on Open Record, a popular news symbol emerges.
We all represent some people that love it and some people that hate it.
But 9 years later,
If we're gonna make something official, we can't have this.
debate is still raging over the people's flag.
That's not the people's flag if it passes by one vote.
From the FOX6 studios, this is Open Record. I am Brian Polson. I'm here with Open Record's executive producer, Sarah Smith. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
And we are joined by FOX6 News anchor Ben Handelman. Ben, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for bringing me back.
I know you're excited to talk about this.
You're
fired up.
Honestly, everyone in Milwaukee, maybe not excited to talk about it, but they have been talking about it. So I was like, we should probably talk
Everyone
about
has an opinion. We are recording this episode on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. Today, as of today, the official flag of the city of Milwaukee remains the same flag proposed by a Milwaukee alderman way back in 1955. It is, in fact, a hodgepodge of designs that were submitted as part of a flag design contest 69 years ago. And it's been widely panned more recently as one of the worst flags in America. A contest-winning replacement that has been widely used and flown for the past decade is still facing hurdles at City Hall, and we'll dive into the vexing world of, see if I can get this out, vexillology. We'll do that right after this. Welcome back to Open Record. Not many people fly the official flag of the city of Milwaukee as a source of civic pride, but all over the place you see its proposed replacement. It's a simple mix of white, gold, and blue with a circle in the middle. It seems to be a pretty highly popular design that's been incorporated into things like beer labels and sports uniforms, murals, and more. It's officially called Sunrise Over the Lake, but it's come to be known as the so-called People's Flag. We're going to talk more about all of that in a little bit. But first, Ben, give us a little history. How did we get here, and what's so bad about Milwaukee's official flag?
Well, and I want to say this off the top. This is not just a story about a flag and a debate over a flag. This has morphed into something much more interesting in the city of Milwaukee. We are talking about symbolism, yes, but race has been thrown into this conversation, equity, power at City Hall, and as a journalist, it's been fascinating to watch because we're talking about a flag for 10 years. But can I bring you back to where this all started?
Please.
2015, there was a TED Talk. Do we know what a TED Talk is? It could be a topic on anything. Well, someone named Roman Mars, he's a podcaster. He gave a TED Talk. It was called Why City Flags May Be the Worst Designed Things You've Never Noticed.
You talk about TED Talks, by the way. The subjects are all over the map. Yeah. A lot of times they are technology related, or it's maybe self-help or whatever it might be. But when you're talking about the design of flags, you know that a TED Talk can go anywhere.
Right. And Roman Mars is known for a podcast he has, 99% Invisible, which talks about design elements that you may not see, but why they're so important and can change the world. And I actually want to start the conversation by talking where this all started, because this entire Milwaukee flag conversation started with a 2015 TED Talk. And I just want to play a part of my 2015 story to start this conversation here.
All right, let's do that.
Trust me, 100% of people care about flags.
In an online video known as a TED Talk,
This is 99% Invisible.
internet radio host
I'm Roman Mars.
recently held a forum on good and bad flag designs. Turns out there's a book on the subject.
Good flag, bad flag.
It's more of a pamphlet, really. It's about 16 pages.
Published by the North American Vexillological Association, a group that studies flags.
Number 1,
Keep it simple.
keep it simple. Number 2,
You have up to 3 basic colors.
number 3,
Use meaningful symbolisms.
number 4,
There should never be any lettering or seals of any kind.
number 5.
And be distinctive.
In the video, now seen more than 1 million times,
Nothing can quite prepare you for one of the biggest train wrecks in vexillological history.
Mars points out our flag
Are you ready?
breaks a few rules.
It's the flag of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
By the way, you said in that segment that this, I think, had been viewed like 1 million times.
Right.
I checked it today because that
I did
story
that
was
too.
2015.
Yeah.
It's been viewed more than 7 million times. I mean, it's a really good TED
Oh,
Talk,
it's
by the way.
fascinating. It's
really,
fascinating.
It's fascinating. That moment, he does a great job of building this thing up, but he's talking about the city flag of the city of Milwaukee, and he ends with this roaring laughter from the audience. And it's such a powerful moment. We were talking about that.
It was painful. I
But
messaged you and I was like,
you said painful.
Oh,
and I thought,
painful.
as someone who lives in the greater Milwaukee area, you go, hey, wait, they're laughing about us. They're laughing at us.
Yeah.
And let me take you back to 2015. Most people in the city of Milwaukee had no idea that we had a city of Milwaukee flag.
Right.
So can we talk about why the city of Milwaukee flag is so terrible and why they're laughing at us? Obviously, it doesn't follow the design elements that we just heard about that in a good flag that the vexillological.
Well, what are those, though? Let's talk
Okay,
about what makes a flag a good flag?
There are 5 of them, right? You want to keep things simple. Rule number 1. A small child should be able to draw it from memory. You can
I wrote that down after I heard him say that, and I was like, that's fascinating and so true. Like, you cannot have it be such intricate detail that no one can remember what's even on it.
Right. Use meaningful symbolisms. Number 2, that has become a big topic of the current debate here in Milwaukee. Number 3, use basic colors.
Only 2 to 3, it said. He said
2 to 3.
Very,
2 to 3.
very
Right.
cool.
No more than that. Number 4, never use writing or seals of any kind. Now, on our flag, even the Wisconsin flag says Wisconsin. Why do you not do that? Well, first of all, a flag never sits like you see it. It's not flat.
Unless you have a giant flag on the wall of your
And you're
room or
looking
your
right at
dorm
it.
or something like that.
Right.
It's usually far away.
And you don't want people to look up and be told what they're looking at. It should be so powerful that they know exactly what they're
just
looking
know.
at, correct? We don't say United States on our flag. You see that flag, you know what it
I
means.
think of this outside of flags. I mean, if you think of good logos, think of the Apple logo.
Yeah.
You see that it doesn't have to say Apple.
Right.
First of all, it looks like an apple. It's an apple with a bite out of it. But you know immediately what that means. It evokes something more than just the name Apple. It says something about the product, the company. It is symbolic.
Yeah.
So it's true beyond flags. But you're saying with flags in particular, because they're so far away,
Right.
they're up on a pole at a distance, you can't really read them anyway, right?
Right. And number 5, be distinctive. Can we all agree that the current official Milwaukee flag from the 1950s is very distinctive?
Oh, it's unique.
it's
I mean,
got
it passes
58
the test
distinctive elements in it.
Yeah.
So it nails that. But let's look deeper into the current 1955 flag. Let's first look at, there's a racist symbol on the flag. There's a depiction of the Native Americans that 1950s, that was probably okay. We don't depict Native Americans that way
With
in
the headdress,
2024.
right? Yeah.
On the flag, okay, they've got a ship, they've got a wheat for our brewing industry, but there is a building on there that doesn't exist anymore. County Stadium is on there.
Yeah.
If you look at the harbor underneath where the ship is, it actually appears to depict dirty water inside the
I don't use
harbor.
that. Is that just your interpretation? Because I know there's dark water inside and lighter water outside.
It might be my interpretation, but it certainly looks not appealing. There is a flag on the flag.
Yeah, the little
Yeah,
tiny
that
flags
was
within
funny.
a flag within a flag. Yeah.
And then if you count all the little flags on County Stadium, there's like 8 flags total. There is something called the Knowledge of Power on the Milwaukee flag. It's a genie lamp. I've covered the story since 2015. I have not found someone who's been able to tell me what that actually means.
Now, if I recall, that flag was not designed that way by one individual who submitted it, because this was a contest back then too. But what happened was they submitted all of these ideas, and this one Milwaukee alderman said, well, I'm going to take a bunch of them and just kind of put them all together. He literally made a hodgepodge, like an amalgamation of all of these different designs, and just threw them on the flag. It's like the contest threw up on a flag, right?
It's the most political thing you've ever heard, right? Instead of upsetting anybody, I'm going to make everybody happy by letting everyone ideas be on the flag. So that's the Milwaukee flag, and the TED Talk that everyone can watch. It's still up there. As we talked about, I mean, 1 million views when I did the story in 2015, now over 7 million views. It's been a very successful TED Talk. Right?
I want to point out one thing, though, that I don't know if a lot of people realize is Roman, what was his name? Roman Mars?
Yes. Yep.
Roman Mars, when he did this, he's a former producer at WBEZ in Chicago. And during the same TED Talk, he talked glowingly about what a genius flag the Chicago city flag is. So there's a little part of me that goes, hey, is he just kind of dumping on our Milwaukee flag because he's a Chicago guy? But the design principles make sense. And he actually he did say in the podcast, I like Milwaukee. It's a great place.
I've been there.
I've been there. So he wasn't just dumping on the city. He was saying from a design standpoint, Chicago's a great example. A few colors, easy to see from far away, symbolic. The 4 red stars, 6-pointed stars have meaning.
Right.
Maybe don't know what those are. It was interesting to hear what the meaning of the red stars were on the Chicago flag. I didn't know.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't.
But you don't need to know that represents the city of Chicago. Is there anyone who's looking at the Milwaukee flag and finding great inspiration in all of that?
Well, that
stuff?
is what really sparked enter Steve Kotis into the picture in 2015. Steve Kotis is a Bayview guy, graphic designer, was a fan of the podcast for Roman Mars. So he took this issue under his wing after agreeing with the TED Talk, basically, and saying, we need a new flag. Not only because of the design failures of it, but even more so that nobody in the city has really sees any pride in the flag. Nobody's flying it. When I did the story in 2015, I went out and searched for where are they flying the official city flag of Milwaukee. It's not flown over City Hall. It was deep in the chambers. But it's not even on the top.
Yeah, it was
of the
like in
flagpole
the dark chambers that nobody was in at the time. You saw it through the window, right?
So one of the big things from Steve, who's this guy from Bayview, who just decided, hey, I'm going to try and make a new city flag. He wanted a flag that people would be proud of and would actually fly. So this is what started this entire process. And it's ruffled some feathers along the way when it actually tries to get to City Hall and become an official flag. And we can talk about that more. But Steve, his whole plan was there was no one at City Hall really wanted to undertake this, okay? And he kind of realized that and thought, you know what? Instead of letting City Hall do it, and it may or may not go anywhere or whatever, how about we as a community just come up with the process of a flag competition? And whoever is the winning flag, we will then take that flag to City Hall and say, hey, we've done all the work for you. Here's the new flag. Just
adopt it.
It seemed easy. It seemed easy at the time, especially.
That's kind of what they did back in 1955 too. They had a contest, and then an alderman went ahead and made a proposal. But this time around, they do this contest. One thing I didn't know is who was part of this contest. Who could anyone submit a design? Was it just in the city of Milwaukee?
And I think there's been some revisionist history because some of the aldermen now are talking about, and one of their big issue is the process. This was not done by the city of Milwaukee, and a lot of people feel like this was done from some private citizen who came up with this flag, and now we have to adopt it as a city. That's one of the arguments. But as someone who was there in 2015, literally covering Steve as he has this effort to do this, Steve quit his job, okay? He was so, I don't know if he was picking up freelance work as a graphic designer, but he went to all points of the city, north side, south side, west side. He just starts talking in front of groups and talking about that good flag design, those 5 principles, right? And he would go in front of groups, MPS students, people at the Boys and Girls Club, a lot of MIAD students, Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, and he would talk about the 5 principles, show the current Milwaukee flag, and say, you know what? Now let's all design a new one. And so hundreds of designs were submitted for this competition. And it was then narrowed down from hundreds. I was in the room, they got a panel of experts, quote unquote experts. They narrowed it, I think, to 50, eventually to 10, and then those were voted on by the community, and thousands of people voted on this.
Now, my question on that, though, is was it open to voters outside the city of Milwaukee? Could anybody vote on this? Was it just people in the city?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it was open to anybody.
Okay.
So it was not
and I could see that being where some people might say, hey, it wasn't just Milwaukee voting on this. But nonetheless, the contest happens. What I noticed is when they unveiled out of the final 5, they have the unveiling of the winner. Mayor Barrett's right there at the lectern, rallying the troops. Hey, we've got this great thing. We're going to announce the winner. So the mayor, it's not like this happened so far. This happened, at a Starbucks. They were sitting around and came up with the flag design. This was happening at City Hall. It just wasn't an official city vote.
So they pick a flag, right? It's called the People's Flag.
It's actually technically called Sunrise Over the Lake.
Sunrise
right?
Over the Lake. Well, they call it the People's Flag because of what happens next. So there's a winner. As part of the rule of their private competition, it's in the public domain. Okay, so it's not like whoever owns the flag can now make money.
Anybody can use this design.
Anybody can use it. You can change it. You can do anything you want with it. And that was very important to the people to Steve Kotis, who made this design, realized this is not really going to work if somebody can actually profit off this or own it. So this has to be the people's flag. So anyway, Now he's completed the process. They have a winner. We've done the whole process for you. You don't have to do anything. There's no cost. And in their eyes, this is going to be a cakewalk. Like, nobody wants the current city flag from the 1950s.
We've saved
Yeah,
you the
you're
effort.
welcome.
But it didn't go that way,
No,
right?
it did not.
We are going to talk about what happened next when we come right back. Welcome back to Open Record. So Sunrise Over the Lake wins this 2016 contest. It's dubbed the People's Flag, but efforts to make it official keep stalling over and over again. It first goes to the council back in, was this 2016, 2017?
2016, correct, yeah.
And what happened? Why didn't it pass through with flying colors?
Many of the aldermen were a little skeptical of the process. They feel like this shows you power in City Hall. We didn't make this process. Who made this flag? And the alderman basically said, you know, something like this needs to not go through us. It needs to go through the arts board. And so we're going to kick this back to committee and back to the arts board.
Now, if I'm correct, I think that's what happened in 1955, right? It was the arts board that ultimately approved this. So they're saying that's our process. It should have gone through the process. Let's send it there.
Right. And
then
there were concerns at the time. A lot of people just didn't like the design. You're never going to find, I'm sure they found this in the 50s and why there's 400 things on the Milwaukee flag because, you know, you're not going to find a bunch of people who like the design.
It's like asking 1,000 people to agree on a movie, and no one's going to agree on a movie.
Or a restaurant.
Or a restaurant, yeah. Right.
But there was also concerns over equity. And did the entire city have a say in this, or was this made by some people in Bayview and some people on the east side? And it brought up some deep, dark things from our city. We're a segregated city, racial inequality. So when people look at the flag, they should represent the entire flag. And I think especially some of the black aldermen in Milwaukee looked at the flag and they didn't see themselves in that flag. So that was brought up. They brought it back to with those concerns of the process back to the arts board. And the arts board decided two things. One, yes, we need a new flag. Two, no, we don't think the process was
inclusive,
great.
Right?
Inclusive.
Yeah. So they said, what? Let's start over?
Let's start over was the process, which is not what anyone
I was going to say,
from
what
Steve
was that?
Fotis's camp or the people from the People's Flag wanted to happen.
So, did that happen? Did they start a whole new process or what happened?
2016, the art board decided, yes, we're going to start a whole new process. They send out an RFP, request for proposal.
Okay.
They get zero. It sits on the sidelines. Why? Because really at City Hall, there is no great strong will to actually do the process, right? Could you make a better process than the one that Steve Fotis came up with and get more results that is more inclusive for the entire city? If there is an answer, that hasn't happened yet, which I think was the fear from the very beginning from some of the people who started the Sunrise Over the Lake process. So nothing happens. And what happens in the meantime? That People's Flag is pretty widely accepted by a large number of people in the city of Milwaukee. We're talking, it's flying over buildings. It's flying over some of our institutions like Summerfest. And I think Discovery World had the flag flying over. Some of the hotels are flying it. I've seen people get tattoos of the People's Flag. And they basically, among the people who were part of the process said, you know what, the city's not going to adopt it. That's fine. We're going to make it the city flag of Milwaukee anyway, and just fly it because the other one's not being flown.
Now, we didn't talk about this, but the designer, Robert Lenz, actually explained what he said that the different things, the elements of the flag represent, the colors, the design, and he talked about there's a circle rising up over Lake Michigan. It's the sun rising over Lake Michigan, which is very distinctive to Milwaukee. Obviously, there's some other cities that would have that, but that's the sun rising over Lake Michigan. The three lines, the blue lines that are sort of ripples in the water, there are three of them, that those were to represent the three rivers in Milwaukee, the Kinnickinnic, and Menominee.
Correct.
And or the three founding cities.
Kilbourne Town.
Kilbourne, Jettown, Juneautown, and Walker's Point.
Correct.
The gold representing our brewing heritage, and then the white of the sun represents peace.
And blue would be the lake.
Blue is a lake, white represents peace. And I still wonder, with all of the racial divisions and concerns about inclusiveness, whether or not that plays any role when you say white represents peace. He certainly meant that seemingly in a very positive way, but has that been taken to be something that is added? You said Mark Chambers, alderman, more recently had comments at the Common Council meeting about what is it about the sun being black or something like that?
Well, let's talk about this because this was 2016 that the City Hall kicks this thing back to committee and nothing happens. Fast forward 8 years, 2024, and suddenly whole new group of aldermen and one alderman that we're going to talk to in a few minutes here, Peter Burgellis, says, you know what? We're going to give it another shot because truly for the people's flag to be fully embraced, it needs to be the official flag of Milwaukee. Otherwise, it's just this alternative thing, right?
Although I kind of wonder, is there something to its popularity because it happened organically and because it's not government sanctioned?
True.
That this is just, hey, we all love it. It really is the people's flag, not the city's flag. Is that some of the appeal for some?
Exactly. So it goes to committee. Okay, it comes back. A lot of aldermen don't want to talk about this. They don't want to be talking about a flag because there are other issues, much bigger issues. Murders. The mayor just announced he wants to raise taxes. I mean, things that matter to a lot of people.
Also, people don't like to talk about something that they know could be divisive because you don't want to lose half your people. Whichever position you take.
This goes to committee, and all of the old concerns rise to the top, and it is a wild debate. So it starts with Bob Bauman, veteran lawmaker at City Hall, longtime alderman, a guy who starts the conversation by saying, you know what? I was going to vote yes on this just because I'm sick of talking about it. But I think for me watching, I think what happened as the design is before him and he actually has to take a vote on this, he's reminded how much he hates the design. Okay, so he's in the camp that he just does not like the design. He looks at it. He doesn't see anything. He doesn't see the symbolism of a city rising over the lake. He doesn't see the three founding community. He sees nothing. He doesn't see anything, and he hates it. And suddenly he goes from, I'm going to say yes on this, just get it over with, to suddenly in committee, he becomes one of the most outspoken no's.
Now, but didn't he also come to council with
his own design?
That happened after committee. Okay, so it's got to go to committee first, right? And it's pretty clear that Peter Burgellis has done some lobbying on this, and he has in committee an overwhelming number of people. And he's got the 5 yeses he needs compared to 3 no's. But there are 2 African-American aldermen in that committee also bringing up when they look at the flag, it's not so much about they just hate the design, although they may also hate the design. They're bringing up that they don't see themselves in the flag, or the minorities.
That's not a small issue.
Who are now a majority in this city. No, it's a legitimate gripe for a lot of people who are talking about the flag. If this is going to be the symbol of your city,
it's got to represent everybody.
You would hope everyone is proud of it.
Right.
And there is some early indications in committee that not everybody's proud of this flag. And they're talking about what do the colors mean? What does the symbolism doesn't mean what it means. I don't like what it means compared to what you're saying it means.
I don't want to hold up our guest because I want to bring him in soon, but we have to talk about the design that Bob Bauman brings. So he takes the people's flag, sunrise over the lake, and he just sticks City Hall on it.
A man who hates the design of the people's flag of sunrise over the lake.
So was he serious? Because you look at it and it looked obnoxious that he just took this beautiful, simple flag, whether you like the design and think it's symbolic or represents the city, it's a very simple design, and he sticks a building on it.
No one thought he was serious. Everyone thought it was an April Fool's joke. It actually went online. Everyone started just throwing their favorite Milwaukee things on there, like the Milverine. They threw him on. The Walgreens at Brady Street. Yes. They threw that on. I mean, people were having fun with this. But in front of a microphone on record, Bob Bauman says it was serious. But at the same time, when this goes to the full committee, he also tells everyone, I don't want this. I actually don't want you to vote on this. I want this to go back to committee. I want us to start over and draw a flag again. The same exact conversation.
9 years later, they want to start over again.
Right. Okay. So, I don't know if you want to talk about what happened first, or should we bring the guest in? But
let's bring our guest in because he can talk us through this whole thing. When we come back, we are going to talk to Milwaukee Alderman Peter Burgellis, a freshman lawmaker who's taken on what appears to be one of the most controversial topics in the city of Milwaukee right now, and we'll join him right after this. And welcome back to Open Record. I am Brian Polson here with Ben Handelman, and we are joined by Milwaukee Alderman Peter Burgellis. Thank you for joining us here on Open Record.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you decided to take on one of the most controversial topics in the city of Milwaukee by bringing the people's flag back in for an official vote. First of all, what prompted you to bring this back? It's been, 8 years, I think, since this thing was first sort of approved in this contest. It wins the contest, and now you are in your first term as a Milwaukee alderman. What prompted you to bring this back?
I started having conversations about this long before I ran for office. When I was a county supervisor, we had conversations about it as well. Maybe this should be a county flag, because you see it in more places than just the city of Milwaukee, Wauwatosa, Shorewood. But this is something that's always been kind of some leftover business that previous common councils never finished or put to bed or completed. So there are a number of legislative issues that the Common Council hasn't finished. We can talk about the city ordinance that doesn't allow us to fine shop owners, gas station attendants who sell cigarettes to 19-year-olds because the city ordinance is still 19, even though federal law is 21. There are a lot of things like that that are just left over.
Okay, but you're a freshman alderman. You've only been there a few months, and you're taking on the flag. This is something they couldn't get done a few years ago. And I find it interesting. There's lobbying that needs to happen in City Hall on things where not everybody's on board. And you have picked something out of the gate in your term that not everybody's on board. What have the conversations been like, and how is it manifested?
Yeah, well, this flag came about from an imperfect process. No doubt, the most vulnerable people in our community, communities of color or our most vulnerable seniors, homeless people, did not participate in the process because it was online only in 2016. And online only in 2016 is certainly much different than online only would be today, right? Post-pandemic. But in the meantime, in the 7 or 8 years since that contest, we've seen that this sunrise flag has been organically adopted by the community. You see it in every zip code. You see it in every aldermanic district flying. Businesses, organizations, political campaigns use the colors and the imagery to help reflect their Milwaukee. And I think that's something unique to the design, that everyone can adopt it and make it their own, and help reflect their piece of Milwaukee.
Adaptable.
Absolutely.
You know what I think about, and I've heard people say this, and people said this during the last council meeting. They say, we have more important things to work on. We shouldn't be spending all this time on a flag. But I ask, why does a flag matter? Why is this important for the city of Milwaukee?
Flags are aspirational. They're representative of who we are as a community. And a sunrise over the lake, I see as a new dawn, a new day for our community, a new day, a new dawn for our city, where we're looking forward to the future, where we're headed where we want to go instead of looking back at 1955. And that current city flag, I think, is a great representation of 1955, but it's not relevant or frankly appropriate anymore. That Indian headdress, Plains Indians or Woodland Indians did not wear headdresses. So that flag is completely biased, does not represent Milwaukee, and it should not represent our city moving forward.
Nobody's really calling
right
for, like, no one's saying we love that 1955 flag, are they? Because if you really think about it, if we're talking about inclusiveness, 1955 wasn't the most inclusive time in our city either. So is there anyone who's saying we need, or are they just saying we don't like this as the replacement?
I've gotten feedback all summer, and I've talked to constituents and constituents in my district, residents throughout the city, even past the city. But frankly, I'm more focused on what city residents tell me. And 90% of the conversations I've had were something similar to, what do you mean? You want to have another new city flag? Didn't we just adopt a new one a couple of years ago?
How many people don't realize that
90% of the people I've talked to
don't realize it's not the official
think
flag.
that sunrise flag is already the official flag of the city of Milwaukee.
But the conversation in the city council chambers has been eye-opening to some of us who are watching this, because from me, it seems that several, especially the African-American aldermen, look at that newer design and they don't see themselves. They don't see Black Milwaukeeans. What are you saying to people who, not just the process is flawed, but they don't think the flag is representative of all of Milwaukee?
I can ask what does represent Milwaukee, right? And I've updated the file in Legistar to address some of the concerns that were brought up from the floor. And we've seen designs modifying the sunrise flag to represent the Latino, the African American community. There's a Juneteenth version of it. It has been used throughout our entire community. So some of the rhetoric that we've heard on the floor and in other media outlets, I don't think is fully accurate.
Well, I think it's interesting because a flag is a symbol. Symbolism matters. And in a community where we certainly are known widely as one of the cities with the greatest segregation problem in America, if we are one of the most segregated cities, it's important that whatever symbols we have of the city are something that speaks to everyone. How do you gauge whether it does? I mean, you've got a couple of aldermen maybe who are making noise. Has there ever been any thought of a referendum or asking the voters? Is there any way to gauge, do the voters of the city, do the people of the city of Milwaukee feel that this is symbolic of their city and what they want to see? Or is there, if the council's vote is almost 50-50, is the city split that way?
The representative sample that from the surveys that we did with written verified city residents is about 80% in favor, 78, 79% in favor. That said, arguments that my colleagues had that a lot of people just don't care. Why would we bother any outreach? This means nothing to them. They have many more important things to worry about, is absolutely valid. When we look at symbols, nothing's going to represent everyone. 50 stars, 13 stripes. Where's Puerto Rico? Where's Washington, D.C.? Right? Nothing is going to be perfect. And if my colleagues have concerns that they didn't have an opportunity to reach out to their constituents enough, then I think we need to put that issue to bed and let that process happen. If that means starting the process all over again, I don't want this flag to pass by one vote. Alderman Bauman, although he also used that aldermanic clip art that echoes 1955 on his version of the flag, I can't believe that he was actually serious about that, but it made people talk about this. And if the sunrise flag is going to be a launching point for a different design that's more inclusive, I'd love to see it.
I don't think there's an appetite for that because of some of your fellow aldermen are saying. I'm even talking to the people who are behind the original process. They don't want a third option. It's kind of vote this down and we'll just keep flying the flag or approve it. I don't think there's an appetite to start a process. This was already tested back in 2016. Okay, send it to the Arts Board. Let's start a process. And nothing happened. Is there?
Well, the process was put forward in a RFP, a request for proposals, in 2019, and there were 0 takers. And maybe with all of the controversy or all the conversations that we've had now, maybe there would be a taker. Is the city the right body to organize that, to make sure it's an inclusive process? Maybe. Is someone else going to do a better job than government? We can argue that point much longer. Like I said, this was in front of committee a week ago. We have another 2 weeks until it's back in front of, this was in front of council a week ago. We have another 2 weeks before it's in front of council again. We're continuing to have those conversations in City Hall to address concerns. And if there's something else that needs to happen to ensure that this flag or a flag that does represent all of Milwaukee is more appropriate, we're going to continue that conversation.
I want to bring up something real quick because the process was wild to me as someone who's watching it. Here you are, a newbie in City Hall, very divisive issue. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, he's got the votes. He's got the votes. This is about to pass, and we're going to be done talking with this. But you forgot something in the document, and it was, what is this going to cost the city? And I don't know if that's a rookie mistake or a slight oversight. And honestly, it's less than $1,000 is the cost to replace the flags, right?
And we did draft a fiscal note.
Okay.
But it wasn't necessary because there was no significant financial outlay for this.
Right.
900. The quote from the flag store in Wauwatosa was $917. People might not realize that there aren't that many city flags that the city flies.
Oh, I think they realize that. As
No,
they look around.
but that in what you say is a not significant amount was enough of a procedural issue for them to hold this.
Well, yes,
right?
they
Is
brought
that-
up they did something that is a rare move, and honestly, maybe not even appropriate, but certainly allowed. The people who've been around City Hall a long time realized, wait a second. I think they realized we're about to lose this 8-7, and they do something that holds it for another month. What did they do, Peter? And what is your thoughts on the process that they used there?
Well, that's a procedural or a parliamentary maneuver. Anytime there's an outlay of or an expenditure in a resolution, spending money, that there's a minority 3-vote hold that could apply. Like you said,
Need 3 people to say we want to hold this because this is going to cost.
we're spending money. Let's take a beat and pause and
you can hold it
delay
for
it
one month?
one legislative cycle, which is normally 3 weeks.
But that's where I say this is a maneuver where you say they're coming up with a way to hold it up. This wasn't about $917. I mean, this wasn't like, oh my gosh, we're going to break the budget because of this $900. This was a maneuver to hold it.
They're hoping to flip somebody.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I'm wondering. Is this like House of Cards for the next couple of weeks? Is there like, people with backroom door meeting, backroom meetings trying to flip a vote?
As busy as the NFL is at the Common Council, I don't think that we rise to the level of House of Cards.
Okay. So there's no President Underwood in the back room trying to make this happen.
But we certainly are having conversations and having conversations with all of the people involved in the process.
Brian, but Brian's point's valid, though. I mean, one person decides, you know what, maybe we should send this back to committee, and the whole process.
Well, except you said something a minute ago. You said you don't think the people's flag should pass by 1 vote. So if you come back to council in 2 weeks and it's still 8-7, do you go forward with it, or what happens?
Well, my vote counts not 8-7, and we never had an opportunity to vote.
Okay.
On it.
All right.
But 8-7, 9-6, 10-5, there are any one of those would procedurally adopt the resolution. Once the Common Council adopts the resolution, then it heads to the mayor's desk for his signature.
So the idea that Bob Bauman's saying this, if this passes by 1 vote, it's not the people's flag. You're saying, I don't know that it was just 1 vote. I think maybe I've got more. It's not House of Cards behind the scenes at City Hall, but we do have conversations that sometimes come to light on the floor, sometimes don't.
And you don't want it to pass 8-7. But if it passes 8-7, it goes to the mayor's desk, no matter what the vote is. No matter Bob Bauman saying it needs to be unanimous, which is not true. He wants it to be unanimous because he wants everyone to like the flag. But I think that would be almost impossible for any design in 2024.
Think about the alternative. So that we send this back to committee and we start over. And the city adopts a process to solicit feedback and solicit ideas, and we narrow it down to a few, and we have voting again. What kind of time frame does that take? Well, who cares how long it takes? If it takes a month or 6 months or a year, time is on our side. But how much does that cost? Well, there's going to be some sort of cost involved. If that gets absorbed by city departments and existing staff, that's an option. But then we're working on the city flag and not reckless driving or potholes, right? Not to say that the city can only do one thing at a time, but that's certainly going to be a consideration of how much effort is the city willing to put into this. We're in the middle of budget season right now. This is the worst time to be debating a city flag. We have so many other priorities to discuss, and we will be over the next couple of weeks, but the budget will be done in early November, right?
One thing I wonder in the end, and I asked this just before we brought you in, is are there some people who love this flag the way it is because it's organic? Because it's not the official flag? Is there some enclave out there that's going, we don't care if you pass it or not because we love it anyway and we're going to keep using it, we're going to keep flying it?
We can look at it from a capitalist perspective. If this wouldn't sell more beer, would a beer company use it to design their labels? Would you sell T-shirts or jerseys using this design for your sports team if it didn't sell? I think we know that answer.
Has the city been missing out because they haven't had an official flag? Nobody's flying the old flag, and nobody's certainly adopting You don't see it on T-shirts. You barely see the thing at all. So what have we been missing out on because we haven't had an official flag that people are proud to fly?
Well, I can give a shout out to the Milwaukee Record. They do use the existing city flag for their Roast of Milwaukee event. They just had that last night. So you do see it here and there.
As a joke.
Libraries don't fly it. Police stations do. Fire departments don't. Schools don't. And organically over the course of campaigning the last couple of years, I've seen 2 in front of homes. And those are traditionalists or Preservation Alliance members who want to hold on to those great memories from the past, which is fine. But again, that existing design doesn't reflect Milwaukee today. It doesn't reflect where Milwaukee's headed in the future.
Peter Brigelis, thank you so much for spending time with us here on Open Record. Thank you for coming up to our studios here in Brown Deer, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens next in council.
So am I.
All right. We will take a break, and we will go off the record when we come right back. And it is time for us to go off the record. This is the part of the podcast where we get a little more casual and have a little fun by answering a question for which we have not prepared. And of course, Sarah Smith is going to ask us that question. But I just want to say real quick, I feel like I could have talked about that issue for hours.
Fascinating.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Everyone in the newsroom's been talking about it.
And I know he kept saying it's not House of Cards, but it feels like House of Cards.
Well, for him, he's a newbie in City Hall, and he's put a lot of his political will into this. Did he burn some of that in this process? We'll find out in the future, because some big votes are about to happen down there when we're talking budget, and as he's talking reckless driving, homicides in the city. People, I'll tell you from covering City Hall, people remember. So on something, you may find it as silly as a flag. If something is said in the chambers that you don't like, people hold that against you in the future.
Memories. Okay, so what do you have for us today, Sarah?
All right. We were all born before the year 2000, right? Right, Ben?
Correct.
Great. That was
Right,
the only
Ben?
question I had.
You didn't ask me, though, did you?
Goodbye.
You and I both, Brian, are well before that year. Okay, so people born before the year 2000. That's all of us. What trivial skill do you have that you don't really use anymore, or don't necessarily need to use anymore because of technology?
You assume I have skills.
Well,
trivial skills? I don't know.
Trivial. I mean,
like
looking
give me
up
an
things.
example.
Like you go to the library. Remember, you used to use a card catalog.
Oh, like the Dewey Decimal
Like
System.
the Dewey Decimal System.
I can't use it.
And
I
the
mean,
kids
it's
just
been
go to
too
the
long.
computer at the library and beep, bar, boop, and they pull up their whatever book they need to find.
Card catalog. I think about that. Pulling out a drawer, flipping
Now
through
they're
the
at
whole thing. Yeah.
what are those antique stores? You can buy the big card catalog things and you put little seed packets in them or something cute.
I can remember like 4 of my friends from elementary school's phone numbers.
Their phone numbers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you my mom's cell phone number right now.
No, I mean, that's true. That's true.
No.
Remembering phone numbers is
Yeah.
it seems like a trivial skill. Back then, it wasn't trivial, though. It was important because
I
now
still-
you just enter it in a
Right.
contact. And you
I still
got it.
use like the 4 digits, last 4 of my home phone when I was growing up as like a code if I need like a 4-digit code.
Security breach. Anyway, all
My
right.
best friend Ryan's number was one off from a pizza place, and I would accidentally all the time hit the pizza place. Like,
Yeah.
even the finger would slip. And that was a
Then
big
you would
part of my
order
childhood.
taco
Anyway.
pizza. Eric's, my husband's phone number was one off from a charter boat in
Ooh.
Sheboygan, and it was called Dumper Dan's. And so they would always be like, "Hello, oh, I'd like to reserve a boat," or they're like, "No, wrong number."
Do any of you still use a physical dictionary ever? I mean, I don't, but I just
No.
wondered. Like, we used to. You always have to go to the dictionary.
I had to type a page out when I got in trouble one time. It was
Ooh.
a page from the D's.
But I don't know that these fall into trivial skills, but like you said, that with the remembering the phone number, I think about like now everything is if I have a list, I just put it in my phone, put it in my little thing.
I know, yeah.
But do you write out lists on paper?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I do.
live
still
by
all
lists.
I do at home. If I have for the weekend, these are things I want to get done or things I know, I write them out because seeing them in front of me and on the counter as I
Yeah.
pass them is very powerful. If I have them on an app that I keep closed, it's easy to forget about them.
I used to be really good at directions. That's the thing people don't do anymore.
You're right.
That you have to remember
sure.
it's
Yes.
in front of you. You do it a couple times. You know how to
Yeah.
get back there. And now it's like,
My
You don't have
kids,
to print out your MapQuest directions anymore.
I'm not sure if my daughter would know how to get anywhere if it wasn't for
Her GPS on her phone?
tells her where to go.
Yeah.
right.
And yeah, just I've been trying to teach her that just get an idea of the major roads. the east,
East
west,
and
and
west.
the north, south. So if you know those,
It'll save you.
You're somewhere within a
The
box.
lake is east. That's all I
Yes,
ever need to remember.
right. But I don't know. Yeah. All right. Anyway, that's what we have for this week. All right, we're gonna wrap things up when we come right back.
Sounds so disappointed.
That is all the time we have for this week. So if you have a topic you would like us to discuss on Open Record, an issue you think we should investigate for Fox 6 News, or a flag design, send us an email to fox6investigators@fox.com. As always, thank you to the people who make this podcast possible. Ben Handelman, thank you for being here.
Let's have a FOX6 flag. Let's design one right now.
Well, stick to the 5 principles, 2 to 3 colors, keep it simple. Our executive producer, Sarah Smith, our editor, Dave Machuda, and he is also our video switcher this week, so I don't have to say anybody else. With that, I'm Brian Paulson. We'll be back next week.